Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material and often very significant risks. There's a 27-year-old works for the DNC who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
Rich was killed in the early hours of Sunday, July 10th, 2016, just 1 block from his Washington, D.C. home in Bloomingdale. Authorities say Rich was shot twice in the back and had bruises on his hands, knees, and face. However, no DNA evidence has emerged from that apparent altercation. Police initially reported his death as a robbery gone wrong due to a high number of recent muggings and robberies in the area. However, police did admit that nothing was stolen from Rich, even though he had cash, a cell phone, and a watch on him at the time of his death.
The death of a DNC staffer is stirring up national controversy as conflicting reports continue to pour in. And so far, police have made no arrests in the case and have no leads on a suspect. We are offering a $100,000 reward for any information that leads to the arrest of a suspect in this case.
10 months later, questions are still popping up about the 27-year-old's mysterious death in a Washington, D.C. neighborhood last July.
The deep state is lashing out big time. Seth Rich murder developments, the guy that got shot 4 times in the back a day after WikiLeaks got information, they said, from a DNC insider.
A recent report from an investigator brought the case to national attention once again, shedding new light on evidence that seems contradictory at best. Rod Wheeler, a private investigator hired by Seth Rich's family and a Fox News contributor, came forward claiming that he was pretty sure there was more to the case than what was being reported in the news.
There is new information that could prove these theorists are, in fact, right. New information from the family's private investigator suggests there is tangible evidence on Seth Rich's laptop that confirms he was communicating with WikiLeaks prior to his death. Now, the question is, why has D.C. police, as the lead agency on the investigation for the past 10 months, insisted this was a botched robbery when, till this day, there is no evidence to suggest that? The Rich family hired Rod Wheeler, a former MPD homicide detective, to run a parallel investigation into their son's death. Wheeler says he believes there's a cover-up and the police department has been told to back down from the investigation.
Welcome back to Hannity. So more on the story of murdered Democratic National Committee staffer Seth Rich, who was gunned down last July in Washington, D.C. D.C. police are officially in charge of this case, but former D.C. homicide detective Rod Wheeler, who was hired by a third party to investigate the murder on behalf of the family, says Mr. Rich was communicating with WikiLeaks before he was killed. Let's go through this case. The timeline is fascinating here. Julian Assange, I asked him repeatedly on radio and television if Russia was involved. Absolutely not. Now, believe him or not, he's a guy that WikiLeaks has an 11-year history of never being proven wrong. When you look at the timeline of this, 12 days after he was killed, it shows up on WikiLeaks
that Seth Rich's PI got in the laptop, and clearly he was killed because he was interfacing with WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is as much as said, we don't give out our sources, but Seth Rich, you know, that was probably our source.
I have never seen the emails myself directly. I haven't even seen the computer that Seth Rich used. Here's the problem with all of this. I don't even know where the computer is. I checked with the police department. They said they don't know where the computer is, and the FBI. They say they don't have the computer. There was a federal investigator that was involved on the inside of the case, but I can't say the person's name because that person would be thrown under the bus. He said he laid eyes on the computer and he laid eyes on the case file. When you look at that with the totality of everything else that I found in this case, it's very consistent for a person with my experience to begin to think, well, perhaps there were some email communications between Seth and WikiLeaks. Every time I talk with the police department, though, Sean, every time I talk to the police department about the WikiLeaks or the emails, it's automatically shut down. That discussion is automatically shut down. We actually have a statement from the FBI telling us to contact the D.C. police. The D.C. police says contact the FBI. Now, which is it? If this is just a murder investigation, first of all, why would the FBI be involved? Maybe it is related to the DNC, and we don't know that. We don't know that for sure. It could have been a botched robbery. But my point is this, Sean, and I've been investigating murders for a while. You have to look at every possibility. You can't just look at one thing and say, well, that has to be it. But here's the thing. There's been a $125,000 reward out for information pertaining to the death of Seth Rich. Not one person has come forward. Here's one other thing that's going to be startling. I reached out to the police department way back in March when the family first hired me, right, to get involved. I didn't hear anything from the police department for 2 to 3 days. Guess what I learned yesterday from the family of Seth Rich? The police department did not call me back because someone, a high-ranking official at the DNC, check this out, a high-ranking official at the DNC, when I called the police department, they got that information and called the Rich family wanting to know why was I snooping around.
How is it possible that the DNC, when the FBI wanted to look at their computers, was able to bring in their own people? Or that the people that ended up getting immunity ended up being able to destroy their laptop computers? Is there any evidence that he might have been disgruntled at the treatment of Bernie Sanders and the unfairness, and that the fix was in to put Hillary in that position, and maybe had evidence of that?
No, I haven't seen any evidence in that regard. The only thing that I have been able to confirm is that there were some problems that Seth was having on his job at the DNC right before he was killed. And the person, listen to this, the person that called the father after I called the police to get information, that's the person that Seth was having problems with at the DNC. Connect the dots here. It's starting to all come together. So again, let me just really quickly say this. I don't know for sure. I don't know as a matter of fact if the emails went out to the WikiLeaks or anybody else, but it sure appears that way.
The FBI has and the DC police have the forensic evidence to tie WikiLeaks and Seth.
The police department nor the FBI has been forthcoming. They haven't been cooperating at all. I believe that the answer to solving his death lies on that computer, which I believe is either at the police department or either at the FBI. I've been told both.
Let's go further. We have this PI that was hired by the family saying, I talked to senior police officers that said, quote, we were ordered to stand down on this murder investigation. This is a respected PI with contacts in the police department, former law enforcement. This is bombshell intel.
So far, One American News, WikiLeaks, the D.C. Metropolitan Police, and even a Republican lobbyist, Jack Berkman, have all put substantial money towards finding Seth Rich's killer, totaling $245,000. But up to this point, the DNC has never offered any reward for information to help solve the murder of their own staffer.
Julian Assange offered a $25,000 reward for anyone who had information regarding the murder of Seth Rich. What clearer indication could you have had that Rich was his source? Rich was not a low-level grunt at the DNC. He was the head of the IT division.
Now, I've interviewed Julian Assange on radio and TV many times, and I've asked him about where those WikiLeaks DNC emails came from that resulted in Debbie Wasserman Schultz firing. This kid got shot in the back. They said it was a robbery, yet he had his watch, his wallet, and his phone. I don't believe it's a robbery. But I asked Julian, was it the Russians? Did Russia give you this information or anybody associated with Russia?
Our source is not a state party. So the answer for our interactions is no.
Now, Seth's family has been pushing back today, releasing a statement that reads in part, quote, we are a family who's committed to facts, not fake evidence that surfaces every few months to fill the void and distract law enforcement and the general public from finding. Now, Seth's murderers.
This is a classic example of them creating fake news in an attempt to blunt this devastating news. What the president should do immediately is order that the FBI take over the investigation into the Rich murder from the D.C. Metropolitan Police.
Seth Rich was investigating several cases involving the DNC's electoral fraud and voter suppression, and was set to testify on the case of Hillary Clinton's email investigation.
If he says it's not Russia, and he comes so close to the line saying it was this kid. Let's put the kid out of it for a minute. I feel sorry for his family. But what if it was somebody that was so disgruntled in the DNC at how they cheated Bernie and how the fix was in, If that turned out to be true, that somebody did that, wouldn't that completely wipe out the entire Russia lie we've heard for months and months?
Of course, and by the way, not only would it wipe that out, but Dianne Feinstein, the senator from California, when asked about evidence involving Russia collusion, she said she has seen to date none. So we've got Clapper, Feinstein, Sally Yates, the entire, no one has, this is a fake story. And the fact is, I understand why the media likes to deal with this, but the reality is that the leaks information, wherever the source was for WikiLeaks, wherever that source was, or whether that person's alive or not, the fact is it was the emails themselves that caused Hillary Clinton the problem, not the fact that they were leaked. I don't like leaks. No one likes leaks.
That's such a good point.
What was in it was the problem. Yep.
According to a letter sent by more than 60 members of the House, the Clinton Foundation is a lawless, pay-to-play enterprise that has been operating under a cloak of philanthropy for years. Solving this case could reveal important clues into the 2016 election and how high up corruption at the DNC really went. DNC officials have long pushed the views that Russia was behind their email leak, but this latest information casts doubt on those claims. So far, One America News, WikiLeaks, the DC Metropolitan Police, and even a Republican lobbyist, Jack Berkman, have all put substantial money towards finding Seth Rich's killer.
Welcome back. Now, Swedish prosecutors are dropping the rape investigation against WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange.
You're saying Julian Assange is going to be Hillary's worst nightmare in 2016?
I think so, yeah.
How so?
Well, he has access to information.
What information?
I don't know the specifics.
Why Hillary in particular?
Well, Hillary hates Julian. She is just an adversary of, I think, internet freedom.
And she signed your extradition request?
Yeah.
When I raised this question in an interview with Michael Isikoff of Yahoo News, he thought I was a conspiracy theorist. He saw nothing strange about the murder of the man who headed the division from which the documents were hacked that proved that Hillary Clinton and Democratic National Chairwoman Deborah Wasserman Schultz had colluded to cheat and steal the Democratic nomination from Senator Bernie Sanders. I want to know who murdered Seth Rich. Don't you?